video, making sure it's working here for a second. Okay, I'm going to show you all of those using a right triangle. Geometry. So you should have learned in geometry that there are three what we call trigonometric ratios. A ratio is basically just a fraction. That's the easiest way to think about it. And I got to spell this right. There we go. So the trigonometric ratios that you should have learned in geometry were the sine ratio, the cosine ratio, and the tangent ratio. Okay. And together, those made up the kind of acronym or saying Sohcahtoa. All right. And the reason you memorize that is that if you wanted the sine of an angle, now this little symbol right here is the Greek letter that we use most often for angles, and that's called theta. So it's just a Greek letter, theta. So if we wanted the sine, which is abbreviated SIN, of an angle, all we do is we look at the side that's opposite of that angle. So that's the O in SO, right there. And then we divide by the hypotenuse of the right triangle. And all you have to do is remember that the hypotenuse is always across from the 90-degree angle. So I'll put this here, C is the hypotenuse. Remember that the hypotenuse is always the longest side. So in this case, if we wanted the sine of theta in this triangle, we would look opposite theta. That side would be A. And then we would divide by the hypotenuse. So in this case, we would say that the sine of theta is A over C. Now those are going to be numbers eventually, but for right now, I'm just using letters. All right. The next trig ratio is cosine, which is abbreviated COS. And if you look at the Sohcahtoa acronym here, you'll see that it is A over H. Well, A stands for adjacent, and adjacent means next to or beside. Now, just remember, adjacent could also be the hypotenuse, but you wouldn't use it for both. So the hypotenuse is strictly the hypotenuse. The side that is adjacent to this theta would be B. So it would be adjacent, I'll write it out for you so you have it, over the hypotenuse. And that's the AH right here. And so the side adjacent to theta would be B, and once again, the hypotenuse is C. And lastly, we have the tangent ratio, which is abbreviated TAN, and you'll see that that's O over A. So that's the opposite side from the angle over the adjacent side. So the side opposite theta would be A, and the side adjacent would be B. So that's your Sohcahtoa. Now, what you didn't learn in geometry is there's actually three other trigonometric ratios, and they are the reciprocals, or if you take the fraction and flip it, so they're the reciprocals of these three. So we call them, let's get this out of the way, the three reciprocal ratios. So if you have the sine of theta, its reciprocal is cosecant, and that's abbreviated CSC of theta. So if the sine of theta equals A over C, like it did in this triangle, we found that right here, then its reciprocal, cosecant would just be that fraction flipped over. So C over A. You don't have to memorize that the cosecant is the hypotenuse over the opposite side. That's what you would get if you flipped that. You would get hypotenuse over opposite, because anytime you want to get the cosecant, just find the sine and flip it over. So here's the next reciprocal. The next reciprocal is going to be the reciprocal cosine. And so the reciprocal of cosine, let me put theta there. The reciprocal of cosine is actually the secant function, and that's abbreviated SEC. And so if, like in our triangle, the cosine of theta was B over C, then the secant of theta is the reciprocal of that, so C over B. And then lastly, if you have the reciprocal of tangent. So tangent's reciprocal is actually called cotangent, and it's abbreviated COT of theta. And so if, as in our triangle, the tangent of theta is equal to A over B, then the cotangent is just B over A. Okay, so all you have to do is not memorize because you already know this. This is the Sohcahtoa, so Sohcahtoa, and then you just have to memorize which reciprocal goes with which function. So I'll write that here for you. But I mean, this is what I have here, but the way we write it in our class is we say that cosecant is 1 over sine, which means it's the reciprocal. Secant is 1 over cosine. And tangent, I'm sorry, it's cotangent, my bad. And cotangent is 1 over the tangent. Okay, so that's really all you what you have memorized about Sohcahtoa so far. So what I'm going to do for you now is I'm going to grab a right triangle, and I'll just steal one I have. Let's see if I can just paste it again. There we go. I want you to ignore the fact that that says cotangent, so I'll just actually erase it in a bit of a tricky way here. Just use a white pen. What I'm going to do is, and here's what the directions will say. They will say find the exact value of the six trig ratios of theta. Hold on one second. On the assignment that I'm going to give you, it's only going to ask you to find one of them. You can do whatever you want. If you just want to find one of them, that's fine. If you want to write all 6 down, that's cool. Whatever is best for you to practice. But I'm going to do all 6 on this one. So here we go. Here's theta right here. Let's see. Can I kind of highlight it? Yeah, there's theta. And so from theta, this is going to be my opposite side. This side here is my adjacent side, and then the side always across from the 90-degree angle is going to be my hypotenuse. So I'm just going to write all 6 trig ratios. So the sine of theta is opposite 3 over the hypotenuse 5. Now it's really easy now just to say, okay, the cosecant is just 5/3. The cosine of theta is adjacent over hypotenuse. So then it's real easy to get the secant, and you just get 5/4, just flip it over. And then the tangent of theta is opposite over adjacent, so 3/4. And then real easy, the cotangent is 4/3. Okay, so just one now.